Engine is very lucky. Over.
Can you please convey our thanks to all the team involved today?
If you like to be beside the sea, be sea smart and save us from saving you.
Do you recognise these pop stars? Fame may have deserted them, but talent didn't. And now they're back. We're giving them a chance to start with a clean slate. We'll fly them to the States, chuck them on a tour bus, and make them sing for audiences who've never heard of them. Each week you vote somebody off until just one is left to be reborn in the USA. 10 egos and just one tour bus. Reborn in the USA, Saturday on ITV1.
Now on ITV1, new rules and a few surprises. The qualifying session for the Australian Grand Prix.
It's a great place for the first Grand Prix of the year. Albert Park, Melbourne, huge interest and expectation as the new regulations take effect. Hello there, good morning. Well, if you've missed your Formula One during the winter hibernation, you have certainly come to the right place. We're with you for just about the next 4 hours here on ITV1 to get you in the mood and up to speed for the new season. The Foster's Australian Grand Prix has a lovely habit of getting us off to a flying start. Well, this year we come down under on the back of the biggest upheaval the sport has experienced for many years. The FIA, the sport's governing body, responding to changes of boredom and excessive spending with a series of new rules. They're adamant the changes had to happen.
Well, it was clearly necessary to do something. A lot of the racing had become very boring, and also the way in which the cars are being operated was putting too much emphasis on the machine and not enough on the man, and something needed to be done. And we tried to get the teams to agree to various changes, then we let them sit down on their own, talk about changes. Nothing came out of that, so in the end we felt we had to act.
So, testing restrictions. 4 teams, Jaguar, Renault, Jordan and Minardi, opting for Friday testing. 2 qualifying sessions, one on the Friday, the Saturday counting towards the grid. Who starts where? Reduced engineering access to the cars. They're locked away after Saturday qualifying until just before the race. You have to race with the same amount of fuel in your car as you use in qualifying. That is very tricky indeed. Changes to communications between the cars and the pits. The electronic aids, they'll be phased out. Launch control, for example, will disappear by the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. And changes to the scoring system as well. If you finish in the first 8, you score. Right, virtually a whole new ball game for our racing weekends. 2 teams, by the way, McLaren and Williams, have gone to arbitration. They're upset at the way the changes have been implemented. The new rules, though, are the prime topic of conversation.
Well, I think, first of all, we don't mind change. I think it needs to be considered change. And maybe some of the changes that we have to accommodate this weekend are for the better. If they are, they should be properly adopted and incorporated into the rules. But I hope everybody that's involved in these changes, and it's not just the governing body, because the teams were very forward in their thinking. I mean, a lot of the things that we're going to be implementing this weekend have come from the teams. So hopefully they'll work, and if they work we should embrace them, and if they don't work we should change them. But let's hope common sense will prevail.
You get a little bit of homework on Friday. Come Saturday lunchtime, you've got to have your qualifying and your race situation pretty well sorted out, and all built into the same one car. That puts a lot more pressure on the engineers to as I say, have done their homework and to have come up with a compromise. It is going to be a compromise, but whoever gets the best compromise is obviously going to get a better result.
The format of the weekend has changed. Your philosophy on how you're going to engineer the car is also going to change. You know, we've got the luxury of that little 2-hour window in Friday morning just to take a bit of the heat off the Friday running, and that'd be a snowball effect if it goes wrong into Saturday then. So we've got a bit more time, which is nice.
For me, 1 hour on the track on Friday definitely is not a lot of time to get to learn the circuit and to get ready for the first qualifying on Saturday afternoon. And then Saturday afternoon I only have 1 lap, so the track time is very limited this year. For me as a rookie, of course, it's not beneficial, but it's the rule of the game. We have to play like this.
Before, qualifying used to get really quick because there were 80 time laps on the tires. Now it's only 20, so I don't think the truck is going to change much.
The biggest decision which I'm a little bit uncomfortable with is the single rain tire, which in the event of heavy rain could catch us out.
You have to really think carefully about what you do in this one lap, to whether to give 100% full risk or back off slightly and have a consistent lap. It's going to be difficult.
You're not allowed to make a mistake. You have only one time to do it, and that's it. No mistakes.
We did develop a range of tires during the winter, and in fact all partners have been developing the same range. Then within this range they can select the 2 specs they prefer, and it doesn't create any problem at the moment. So for us the regulation change has been mainly positive.
I don't find the safety thing a big issue at all, because we've just got to look at qualifying as the start of the race. So when we send the cars into qualifying, consider it the first 3 laps of the race, and we never bring the cars in during the race to check them for safety.
Last year we needed to drive cost out of Formula 1. We needed to give more to the spectators, the viewers. We needed to make it more interesting, and I think we've done that. You're going to see some very interesting grids this year. You're going to see a little bit of a levelling of the playing field, and I think it can only be good for the sport.
Well, here in our trackside studio, delighted to be joined by Mark Blundell and Tony Jardine, and they'll be giving their views, of course, throughout the season. Welcome both. 1 or 2 conflicting views down there, Mark, along the paddock. Where do you stand?
So far, so good for me. But you're quite right, Jim. You go and talk to the drivers, you talk to the team personnel. It's a whole change to the format of Grand Prix weekends as we've seen them before. And a few people are scratching their heads. A little bit are saying, well, I'm not sure I like it. And then the other party is saying, yeah, we're all for it. But for me personally, I think it's a good change.
Tony, for a very long time in this studio, you've hammered the drum for change. You a satisfied man now?
I will be after Silverstone when the drivers get their cars back and they're out of the hands of the software engineers and we have a championship for drivers again instead of for the engineers. But I think the new format is refreshing. We've got lots going on Friday and it tees it all up beautifully for qualifying day. I think it's tremendous.
Let's have a look at some of this morning's action. Michael Schumacher has a brilliant record here, but in a spot of bother this morning, the world champion.
Well, we've seen Michael go off time and time again in previous Grand Prix of years have gone by, but this is a little bit sort of unaccustomed for him, smacking the wall there, doing a bit of damage to his Ferrari. They're taking the left front corner off there and then also had to replace the nose box. Of course, puts him on the back foot slightly. They've had to repair the car to get him out to the second session, but typical Michael's luck, he actually manages to get back to the pit on 3 wheels.
But another wobble, Tony, in that second session.
I was going to say 3 wheels like 98. Do you remember when he hit Coulthard in the wet and he still got back to the pits as well there? But he's all over the place. He's not happy with the one-shot qualifying. He was a bit miserable after yesterday. As Mark says, he will experiment, especially the first race of the season. Don't forget, it's still very dusty and dirty out there as well, and the wind's quite high as well.
And a big accident for Kimi Raikkonen, who McLaren expect to go really well for them this season.
Well, all of the guys at the moment, because of the change of format, they're all changing the fuel levels, seeing how hard they can push, what performance of lap time they can get out of the car. And Kimi, I think, there just overcooked it slightly. He's had quite a big hit there. But the problem again, on the back foot, that car then couldn't run in the second session this morning. We've got a number of issues there for Kimi because he hasn't got all of the data. And for the team as well. Coulthard and Kimi would have been out in separate comparison runs. Now they've got to make their mind up on where they go for qualifying.
Tony, Williams have come here very low-key after a mixed winter testing, it's fair to say. They've got a brand new motor, but it didn't do the job for Montoya this morning.
No, and this is a very difficult circuit. It does flatter to deceive. You don't really know that your car is working until you get to Interlagos, where you're really tested on the aerodynamics. This is a street circuit, you know, and they seemed, and Mark and I looked at this morning, and as Mark was saying, potentially then overfilled, you know, the old oil tank there, spewing out the back. It did stop later on, that particular car, but the aerodynamics have not been working in testing. They've been short of grip, and they really needed to make a big leap. So far they haven't. Very disappointing, and even Sir Frank Williams is saying that.
But great encouragement this morning for Jenson Button, going really well for his new team for BAR, and Jenson Button second quickest this morning, sandwiched by the 2 Renault, Trulli and Alonso, who I expect to have a really good season. Let me just show you the timetable for all you night riders joining us live tonight on ITV1. You're all very welcome, of course. And this is how we shape up. We're going to tell you all about the teams very shortly, who's gone where, who's driving for who, etc., etc. And then James Allen and Martin Brundle will take you through the new Friday qualifying session, that one-hit session, of course. We've got a couple of really nice features for you as well. Beverly Turner has gone back home with Mark Webber down to Canberra. And Damata, the new Brazilian driving for Toyota, he'll take us around his hometown, Belo Horizonte. Of course, we'll be interviewing and lots of analysis as well. We're getting good access this season, improved access, all to improve our show. A competition for you as well. You can drive a Formula One car if you win it. And 2:30, there's a little warm-up session. We'll be showing you all of that, building, of course, towards the qualifying session live at 3 a.m. First live interview of the day. It is David Richards, the team boss of BAR, with Louise.
Thanks, Jim. The big story of this weekend has obviously been all those rule changes. David, what do you think from what you've seen so far? Is it going to liven things up?
Well, I think the audience will be the deciding factor, and the TV audience probably more so than anybody. From our perspective, it's just sort of reorganising ourselves to adapt to the situation. One lap qualifying, sort of a bit of pressure on the drivers, no mistakes there hopefully, but overall I think it's all very positive personally.
Things seem to be going very well for you, pretty well for you so far. How's Jenson getting on? How's he settling in?
Jenson settled in like a dream, you know, and contrary to all the expectations, he and Jack getting on very well as well. So no, it's a good team spirit, great morale, and really looking good.
High hopes for this afternoon?
Well, it's slightly different today because there's yesterday everyone was really seeing how fast they could go. It's low fuel. That really is the performance of the cars yesterday. Today, it's a little more tactical as we decide what fuel load to start the race with tomorrow. So you're going to see some interesting sort of tactics. I'm sure a number of teams will run very light, and you know, others will take a more sensible approach and look at the race.
Thanks, David. We'll be keeping our eyes on you.
Thank you.
We'll be keeping our eyes as well on that Jenson Button, Jacques Villeneuve situation. Getting on very well. We're not entirely convinced about that. Right, who has gone where? Who are the new faces? We have 4 British drivers on the grid. And to bring you up to speed, let's join the ITV F1 reporting team for 2003. Ted Kravitz, and first it's Louise.
Reigning world champions Ferrari are the bookies' favourites to win the title again in 2003. The team has retained its most successful lineup ever, Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello.
The new Williams BMW has looked steady rather than lightning quick in winter testing, but give it time and they'll be on the pace. Leading the charge are Colombian bad boy Juan Pablo Montoya and proven race winner Ralf Schumacher.
No new car yet for McLaren, but the interim package has looked very promising in winter testing. David Coulthard starts his 8th season with the team. Once again, Kimi Raikkonen will be keeping him honest.
Renault are next. They've suffered with an underpowered engine in testing. Could be in for a tough development period over the next few races. Italian Jarno Trulli stays put and is joined for this year by Spaniard Fernando Alonso.
Swiss privateers Sauber are out to give the big guns a run for their money again this year. Germans Nick Heidfeld and Heinz-Harald Frentzen are the drivers charged with the task.
Jordan are now back with Ford Power, but they have to pay for it, and the Irish team need to save every penny they can at the moment. Hopes rest on the shoulders of Giancarlo Fisichella and the best driver to come out of Norfolk since Martin Brundle. It's Ralph Thurman Jr.
Jaguar Cosworth are determined to up the ante in 2003. The new driver lineup looks pretty promising. Ex-Williams tester Antonio Pizzonia is joined by Aussie hotshot Mark Webber.
BAR Honda have come out with a much improved car and a very promising engine, but the drivers have fallen out with each other. We haven't even had the first race. They are the Canadian Jacques Villeneuve and his fellow facial hair enthusiast Jenson Button.
Minardi are determined to battle on against the odds. This year the Italian minnows are fielding Lofty Britain Justin Wilson, and back after a year off, lost the boss Verstappen.
Last team in the pit lane are Toyota. They're well funded, have a decent car and are sure to score regular points. French veteran Olivier Panis and F1 rookie Cristiano De Mata are the men to deliver.
Brilliant success. David Coulthard wins the Australian Grand Prix.
Coulthard leads the British Challenge in the 2003 World Championship. A veteran of 141 Grand Prix, the Steely Scot has lost none of his enthusiasm for Formula One.
I love the thought of getting out there and racing, and we don't get a lot of wheel-to-wheel battles in Formula One, but nonetheless the whole build up to the start of a Grand Prix, the team leaving you alone on the grid, you are carrying the hopes of not only the team and the sponsors, but anyone who follows the team, and I just love that whole pressure that goes with it.
Are you in favour of the changes?
There's no point in me being against them. It's not something that I can influence or I just got to accept it, really. So I wasn't unhappy with the old Formula One. I thought that was quite nice. So we've got a new Formula One now, and it's just a case of getting on with it.
Jenson Button versus Jacques Villeneuve. This inter-team competition could make or break Jenson's F1 career. It's now in its 4th year, and he's still just 23 years old.
I don't have to prove anything to myself, really. I know how I've improved over the last few years. They might not have been the best years in Formula One, especially the first year at Benetton. But I've gained a lot of experience. You do definitely mature over a few years in Formula One. Driving-wise, fitness-wise, technically, I'm the best I ever have been in Formula One. I've still got a lot to learn this year and in the coming years, but I'm very happy with my progress, and I think this year is hopefully going to be a good year, a positive year, and a good step forward.
New boy Ralph Furman has an impressive track record. Macau F3 winner, Formula Nippon champion, tractor driver extraordinaire. It's taken the 27-year-old a little while, but he's finally made it to the top.
I think it's what every racing driver plans to, well, starts off wanting to get to, isn't it? The dream and goal is Formula One. And battled on and luckily got the opportunity this year. I feel very lucky. I mean, I've always fought hard in the past racing against in Formula 3, the people I beat, Montoya, Trulli, Heidfeld. So you had to fight them off to win the championship. And then I've been out in Japan battling in uncompetitive cars, so fought through and stuck with it to win the championship, and hopefully that's going to pay off in the future years of racing in Formula One.
As a boy, Justin Wilson raced karts against Jenson Button. Now the 6'3" man is a Minardi race driver and has proved that F1 cars aren't just built for small jockeys.
Some of the designers have views that the weight is higher up, but you know, everyone's got a different view on the subject. I personally don't think the height should compromise what I can and can't do in the car.
Do you think there's an element of us wanting to build another young British sports star?
You just got to keep focused, because you do get people all the time believing and expecting you to do a good job and be the new driver they can support winning races, but one step at a time.
Well, all those drivers and teams were in action for the first new style Friday qualifying session. Let me just remind you of the format. All the cars on the track individually, just one flying lap each. The fastest with the advantage are running last in today's session to decide the Grand Prix grid. Well, as reigning champion, Michael Schumacher is first to go. Let's join our commentary team, Martin Brundle and James Allen.
So Michael then approaching his first and only flying lap in quite a calm way, and often you're better to go slowly into that last corner and get on the throttle earlier and just catapult out for maximum speed over the start-finish line. And this is the most difficult part. Where do you brake for that first corner? And Michael ran in a little bit deeper than he would ideally want, but it was okay.
Well, when this rule was announced that we would have single car qualifying, a lot of people felt that it would play into the hands of Michael Schumacher, because generally speaking, he has been blisteringly quick on his first lap in qualifying in the days when they used to have 3 or 4 runs. Some of the other drivers have struggled to be able to do that, so let's see if in fact this is going to be a masterclass from Michael Schumacher, and he cuts the beam for the first sector, 29.145.
Yes, indeed. Now turn 8 then, that's easily full throttle. Up to 9, tremendous braking zone there, and you've always got to get the nose into the apex early here, and the corners tend to open up for you nicely on the exit, so a little bit of understeer doesn't do you any harm. You can get on the power earlier. Second timing beam coming up quite soon, and there it is then. So that's the benchmark, 52.343 seconds as you turn into that very fast chicane, turns 11 and 12. And Schumacher then, you'd have to say, not really on the ragged edge, is he? But it's committed, but not a super qualifying lap as such as we've seen in the past.
Well, it's very difficult, isn't it, for the drivers to judge? Do they go absolutely all out, or do they leave a little margin for themselves? Running a little bit wide there, Schumacher through 15. This is the final corner then. Last year, Rubens Barrichello was on pole with a 125.843. How much faster have we got? We've got slower. 127.103. Now that's interesting, Martin, because a number of drivers were faster this morning in the free practice session than they had gone last year in qualifying. But here's Michael. He's a full 1.5 seconds slower than last year.
Yes, but what would you do really as a driver? Would you want to practice for tomorrow afternoon when you're running a lot more fuel, because it's getting ready for whatever fuel you run in qualifying 2 on a Saturday afternoon you have to start the race with? Do you want to practice that? Or do you want to practice the ultimate Banzai lap to get a better starting slot for tomorrow afternoon? Rubens Barrichello then, second in last year's World Championship, second to run this afternoon in the sister Ferrari.
Let me just explain how this is going to work. Barrichello came out to start his outlap as Schumacher began his flying lap. So if you imagine, he was following him around the track. That's the sequence we're going to see for everybody. We're in World Championship order from last season. So the next man out will be Juan Pablo Montoya. But we'll have a short break after cars 5, 10 and 15. All will become clear as the hour unfolds. Meanwhile, Barrichello, last year's pole sitter, 4 times a Grand Prix winner in 2002, pushing hard again at Melbourne.
Yes, and he's significantly faster. We thought we saw Michael Schumacher running a little bit wide in turn 1. And look, Barrichello who was faster than Michael this morning as well, already 4 tenths up.
Majestic Melbourne skyline in the background then. A terrific crowd here this afternoon. Certainly bigger than I've seen for some time on a Friday, and one senses that the excitement engendered by these new rules, particularly the single lap qualifying, does seem to have got into people's minds. Half a second up Barrichello then after the second sector. What's he going to be able to do? Is he going to get his second pole position in a row? Certainly there's a lot of pressure on Ferrari this weekend from the McLaren team. Michelin do seem to have brought along a very good single lap qualifying tyre. And, well, Coulthard and Raikkonen will be armed with that in a moment's time. But again, slightly wide for Barrichello in 15.
Yes, a lot of understeer there in the slow corners. So the setup, not ideal. Remember, they've just had 1 hour of running this morning. And I'm absolutely sure, James, Barrichello goes over the line with a 26.3. That's the fastest lap of the weekend so far. And this morning, Kimi Raikkonen on a 26.5 was the fastest man. So that's a pretty handy lap indeed. But these cars are far from ideal, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see some changes in these regulations in the next few weeks and months, because there's a lot of things, we'll talk about it through the weekend, a lot of things not really quite working out.
Yes, there is talk of a meeting before Imola to assess some of these rules after the first 3 races and see whether some of them need changing, particularly the idea of running race fuel levels during second qualifying on Saturday. But for the moment, let's focus on Friday. This is Juan Montoya, third in last year's World Championship, and a lock up there into the right-hander from Juan Montoya, who was 7 times on pole last year. Nothing wrong with his qualifying performances, but this Williams, Martin, has been really struggling for pace in pre-season testing.
I know, Frank Williams described it as frankly embarrassing, I think was his exact words, and that's quite astonishing. The drivers, the team bosses, even BMW complaining about the speed of the car, but it didn't look too shabby this morning. Montoya then down into turns 9 and 10, and we're not really seeing the ragged supersonic laps that we're used to in qualifying. I have to say, the drivers have got an element of caution out there. They've had so little running on the track, and it's going to be fascinating later on to see how, for example, the Renault drivers who had the extra 2 hours this morning, how much more confidence will they have, because they've had a lot more track time. Their cars are going to be much nearer the mark.
Indeed, Montoya, and in fact all of the cars that didn't take part in the test session, so that's everybody except Renault, Jaguar, Jordan and Minardi, have had just 1 hour to set their cars up for this qualifying session. Certainly in BAR's case, they've had very, very little time at all. So how are they doing? How's Montoya doing as he exits turn 16 and drives for the line? He's going to go into third place, so behind the 2 Ferraris, and the question mark is how much fuel are these cars carrying? It's very difficult to tell now. In the old days of qualifying, they would always run as low as possible to go as fast as possible. But one of the problems of the 2003 season is going to be working out how much fuel they're carrying. Here's Ralf Schumacher though, 4th in last year's championship,